Hello everybody, this is Nigel Maynard, Editor-in-Chief of Drugstore News, coming to you live from NACDS Annual in West Palm Beach, Florida. We are here today talking to Leon Nicholas, who is the VP of Retail Insights at Westrock. Leon, how are you?
I'm fine, Nigel. Thanks for having me.
Good. So before we jump into some topics here, how good is it to be back at NACDS?
Oh, I'll tell you, it is absolutely fantastic. I mean, there are so many hundreds of industry colleagues here, and so many opportunities to engage with our customers and friends. It's wonderful to be together again. It's not the same, when things are virtual. And I think the opportunity to have that one-on-one live engagement in person, I think makes a big difference.
Yeah, and of course we all know why we haven't been meeting in person is because of COVID.
For sure.
And so, which is a good segue into my first question. COVID disrupted things for everyone. So what do you see happening in retail that's going to be more long-lasting than COVID, because it's on the wane right now?
Yeah, it's a good question. It's sort of this idea of what's going to remain sticky now past all that disruption. I think three big areas are going to remain and will become more permanent fixtures of our economy today, and for retailers, things that they're going to have to respond to. The first is what I would call digitization. And that is the idea that the shopper today is much more comfortable operating digitally, operating through mobile devices and operating through computers and internet connections and all of that. So the connectivity, I think, is now something that people have been experiencing and will now continue.
Okay, so when you say digitization in retail, I'm assuming you mean, an example of that is when I go to the gas station and I take the pump, the screen comes on, it gives me the weather and it gives me all of that kind of information.
I think that's one part of it, increasing use of screens in stores. I think it's also the screen in the customer's hand. Mm-hmm. The customer today has a mobile device with him or her, and the capacity to use that screen as a mediator between the shopper and the store means that things often get placed on that device. So I think that's part of digitization as well.
Okay, so in real terms, tell me, what does that look like in a store where digitization is being implemented?
Yeah, I think what it means is a variety of different variables. One is more screens. One is more QR codes and scannable packages and scannable displays, things of that sort. I think it also means checkout that is oftentimes now self-checkout and self-immersion that way through digital. Ultimately, the way that we see this playing itself out is that the store becomes digitized. The store becomes a smart environment to engage with the smart shopper with a smart device, and such that interactions in the store, movements in the store, engagements with displays and shelves and packaging can get measured, can get tracked, and therefore much more customized.
So I'm thinking ahead. So let's say a customer is in a store, they pick up a package, and they might want to get recipes or something. They can either use the screen in the store or their phones to maybe get some advice or...
That's right, and the capacity to use the phone means it can be personalized. It can be personalized in a couple of ways. One is, depending on the day that it is scanned, the day of week, is it a weekday or a weekend? The time of day, is it noon or before dinner? The environment, is it sunny outside or is it cold? The messaging I give to that shopper can be dynamic and can actually reflect either those environmental conditions, or it can reflect more personal variables, like, is the person scanning at a frequent shopper, a loyal shopper, one who hasn't been in the store for a couple of weeks. All of those things can be customized because this scan takes place in a particular geography and it's time coded and all of that. So it's the ability to make it dynamic that I think makes it really unique today in ways that haven't been done so much in the past.
Yeah. So something like that can get tricky because there can be drawbacks. Because we heard of one retailer who tried it and it didn't really go as smoothly as they had hoped. Is there a way for a retailer to minimize potential shortfalls or pitfalls, if you will?
Yeah, this is new. This emergence of the smart store, and smart displays and smart packaging. So I think one way to do that is have the shopper opt in to the program. Don't just assume that the shopper wants to be digitally engaged. Have the shopper opt in when he or she walks into the store, so that is in place. The other is, I think, to ensure that the data that is feeding these interactions is as robust as possible, so that you're really being much more targeted now with the shopper based upon, as I've said, the environment around the store, the weather, the temperature, the season, but also that shopper's own personal shopping behavior that you have now on the mobile device, what the shopper has bought, the conditions under which they buy, and things like that. I think the more customized it can be, the more we're going to avoid a lot of those pitfalls that others have achieved. And you can do that off smart packages,
Yeah.
interacting with that smart device.